My name is John.
My name is Arvin.
And this is Behind the Scenes.
Of Our Best Days.
Season
9.
9.
Yeah.
Wow, 9 seasons. We're very grateful. If this is your first time tuning in, this is a podcast that we do here at the Ministry of Victory Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we talk about the behind the scenes of what it's like being here at Victory. We are currently in 2025 March. We're getting ready for spring break. We just had our spring break missionaries.
Yes.
That we sent out. It's the largest group of young people that we've sent out to do spring break missions. It was like 330
That's
kids.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, that's really
so
good.
cool.
Yeah.
Your wife served and worked.
Yeah, for years. For 6 years, Daniela was helping with that team. And
behind the scenes.
yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah. Oh, every peak and valley you can imagine. You know, we had, obviously, happy to say everyone was always safe.
Thank God.
You know, there would be certain kids who would like not listen and get a cut or a scrape, being dangerous, but that was normal. But yeah, always coming in country, out of country.
Coming in and out of country with teenagers, and then you have to find, and then you have to do the missions training where they learn productions.
Yeah. Oh, sure. They do little skits with things.
It's like a human video.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. So,
and then they also do they hand out food. They also go to orphanages and schools. They also just will set up a sound box in a la plaza.
Yeah, that's right. I've done it. You've done it. Yeah, absolutely.
And the outline of one of these missionary things is an icebreaker. Mm-hmm. So we do the doctor skit.
Yeah.
If you guys it's
on YouTube. I'm sure it's on.
If you just Google doctor skit, Christianity fail.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
What's the big one? The one with the
heart
chain,
skit? So listen. So it is each ministry site is this is the PCO. This is the planning center for a ministry site on a missions trip. When you're in, whether it is Haiti, Dominican Republic, Guatemala, or we do it in Beijing, China, right outside of a subway center, or in Hong Kong, or in Ghana, Africa.
Yeah.
You set up the sound box, and then you just start playing music.
Yeah.
Music draws people.
Totally.
As they start drawing people, if there's someone on your team that can dance, they start pop locking and dropping.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe not much dropping.
There's not a lot of dropping.
Yeah. Because it's missions. All right.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's for the free day.
We got slow lowering. We don't drop it.
We're gonna drop it like it's warm instead of like it's hot. And so you have people dance or just be goofy, and then you have them do something called the doctor skit or the sin chair.
Yeah.
And they hold up the sign or the sin bag, and it says, no tocar, which means don't touch.
Yeah.
And then they touch the sin bag, and then they try to hide it when the next person comes in.
Yeah, they can't let go of it.
And they can't let go of it. And then another person touches it, and then each person that comes through this line, all these people get stuck on this bag, and then the witness comes in, the Christian, and they hold up the sign that says no tocar, and then they turn it around and it says pecados, and it's not fish, which is pescado, it is sin.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, I get it. They're all stuck in sin. And then the person does this with their hands, and they make a little Bible opening.
Yeah.
And then they're like, you reciben Jesucristo en tu corazón.
Yeah.
I'm just using Spanish because
incredible memory. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's usually what we're doing.
That's usually in the South American countries, or unless if it's in Brazil, it's in Portuguese,
Yeah.
But and then they pray, and then they get free from sin.
Beautiful.
Right?
Yeah.
And then they have certain people, these teenagers, they give a testimony with an interpreter.
Yeah.
Learning how to talk with an interpreter. You interpret for your dad in Farsi.
I do.
Your dad has an Iranian church here.
Yeah.
And you've interpreted, and your dad has also done missions.
Oh, yeah.
And you've interpreted either English into Farsi or Farsi into English.
Yeah.
How do you get down that?
It's just like learning an instrument. You just have to learn the rhythm,
What's the worst person that you've had to interpret for?
Oh boy, I've only done it for my dad. Really, I never really did it until he asked me to, and thankfully he had that rhythm figured out very early on. I have also been the person who's being interpreted. I was on a mission trip in Ecuador in 2008 with Victory, and I was sharing, and then I forgot. This happens, I'm sure, to everybody who's done this.
Yes.
When you get to the portion of the service where you're leading people to cross the line of faith and accept Christ, you say the thing, "Dear Jesus," and you say, "Repeat after me." And then the guy or girl, could be a girl, then translates, and then I would go back because that's the rhythm, but then they have to repeat it.
So there's three
There's 3 layers. You have
repeatings.
to do this
So
and-
this is a hack.
Yeah.
You just go, Lord Jesus, and then he says,
Lord Jesus,
in nomine
in the
Dei
language,
Jesus.
yeah, and then they have
to say it.
Yeah. So I've had interpreters put their hand on my back and be like, "Hold on."
Hold on. Yes, because then no one gets saved if they don't have time to repeat
They can't
the prayer.
say anything. And at that service in particular, I'll never forget. It was a school, like 500 kids, and like 3 kids stood up, and they're walking forward. Halfway to me, one of them stops, turns around, and walks back.
Nope.
Everyone's laughing, and you're just holding a mic going, "I'm not John Bevere," even though I tried. I'm not.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, so then after someone does their testimony,
Yes,
and
yes.
it's like, in the testimony, we outline it into these 3 things. And if you're ever trying to be like, okay, how would someone give a testimony, whether it's on a video for a service or whether we're on a missions trip, and I want to help train someone how to give a testimony, it is where I was or what I was dealing with, sickness and addiction, or without God, or not knowing the love of God.
Yeah.
Where you were. The second part of the outline is what God did in your life.
Right.
And then the third part is who I am today because of it. And then the fourth part is, would you also like to
want
experience?
this too?
Do you want this? And that's how you break down a testimony. And with kids, usually that 4-point thing is like 2 minutes, unless the girl's like, and then my cat died. And the person's like, okay, y gato, And then she was like, and then she'll say something along the lines of, like really sad, and then he'll say it, and then they'll go, like really, really sad, and then he'll say it again, and everyone in the plaza is like, okay, we have cats die all the time,
we're sad. We get it.
we get it. So anyways, it's just a funny dynamic. After that, we end with the biggest part of a ministry site, which is it's to the song by Skillet, Locked in a Cage.
That's right.
And it is a skit called Bondage.
That's right. That's what it is. Yeah.
And it is someone who wakes up in this world, and there is an evil, some people will call it a magician. For us, we do the devil.
Yeah.
This is the person that every kid, every boy wants to be the devil.
That's right.
What?
It's the whole thing of like playing a villain is more fun.
Yes, that's why like my young boys are like, I like Joker more than Batman.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
yeah, there's something to that. Yeah.
So anyways, and so, for drama tryouts, everyone's trying to be the devil. And then he wraps a chain around someone, which sounds crazy. But when you're watching it, you're like, okay.
But it's fun.
And it is fun. And this person is reaching out to the lust of the eyes, the greed of life, basically the sins.
All the stuff that can go wrong.
And then Jesus stops in the middle of the music.
Yeah.
Only locked in a cage. Dude, Skillet is Scott Stapp Creed.
That's right.
For Christians.
Yes,
Anyways.
That's right.
Jesus comes in. He takes the chain for her. The devil pulls Jesus in.
Yeah.
And all of the sins turn into like demons.
Yeah.
And they get around him and they beat him up.
Yeah.
And it's the bridge of the song
perfectly
where it
timed.
sounds like, oh, Jesus is down for the count.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Oliver! He shoots up.
They all fall.
And it represents the resurrection.
That's right, exactly.
And he puts his foot on the devil and he holds the chain, and it shows that he broke the chains.
Yeah.
And the girl falls to her knees. He says, you give your heart. And she's like, yes, hugs. And then that's the end.
Yeah.
It is so engaging.
It works.
It does work.
People feel it. Yeah.
It's like Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, okay, I know it's basic chicken and then waffle fries.
Yeah.
But people still go to Chick-fil-A.
It works, yeah.
So this works, and then the person who pulls in the net, which is like the altar call, they use the chain to go, maybe some of you in your life have felt chained up by certain things.
Right.
Then it's like, if you would like to be free and receive Jesus into your heart.
Yeah.
So anyways, all of that is like the behind the scenes of a missions trip.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. You do that 15 times a day.
Right.
And then 5-6 days in a row.
But it's a great learning experience for kids, because
Yeah.
then when people respond, we force the kids to go pray for them.
Yeah, you interact. You get to talk
And
to
you do
people.
like an altar training with the kids to where you teach them how to lead someone, or to ask them if they need prayer, if they're in pain, if they need prayer for healing.
Yeah.
So that is just common to us, but maybe those of you who are watching, you're like, what?
Yeah.
Because you have a 12-year-old, a 6th grader, still a whittle chubby, who's just putting his whittle hand and just being like, and Lord, I just pray that this arm grows back.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
and here's the thing, is that their faith is so inspiring on these trips.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It definitely convicts me as a 40-year-old adult to be like, they have more faith than me.
The sincerity of it.
The sincerity of it.
Yeah.
And you just see it. And so that is why I am such a firm believer that everyone, even atheists and agnostics, even people who are like, I don't believe in missions, or I feel like short-term missions is a false gag, like it doesn't make any real impact, like it does more harm than good. All of you people, you should go on one missions trip, even if it's to criticize it.
Just observe.
Just observe.
Just take notes.
Because what happens to the person who goes is just as powerful as what happens to the person who experiences it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what kids learn is that I'm not the one healing this person.
Yeah.
It is up to God. So you pray the scripture, and then you're like, Holy Spirit, do your thing.
Yeah.
And then you have these great conversations with a 15 or an 18-year-old. They're like, why did we pray for that person and they didn't get healed? Or we prayed for that person and that person got healed. And then you have to tell them, like, remember, it was not you. It was God.
Yeah.
Or the person who was getting prayed for, it was their faith.
Yeah.
And so it makes for great.
Yeah, it's a huge, I mean, if you think about like a kid growing up in the suburbs of Tulsa or wherever, and their exposure to the world is the Christian environment they're in. This is a crash course in like, this is what the world is like.
Yes.
And it helps to have a mission, because then it forces you, like if I go to Ecuador now, I'm going to go to Quito, I'm going to go to the really nice hotel, and I'm going to have, hopefully, I don't know, I'm saying it again, and I'm going to go there, and I'm going to go to the cool tourist attractions. But when you're on a trip like this, the mission involved is like, where's the place where there's like...
the most hurting people.
Yeah. I remember there was a part of town that was like half dump, like where the trash was put, half market. Yes. And the people who lived in the dump would create little micro businesses, and they would sell things in the market. Right. I remember it was one of the first times, this is 2008, I'm like between freshman and sophomore year of high school. At this point, I've done dozens of trips with my parents, but this is one of the first ones where I'm by myself without them. And I just remember walking in there, and it was the first time I understood what people were talking about when they say, like, feeling a spiritual heaviness.
Yes.
I walked into this place, it just felt like everyone was at a funeral, but it was their funeral. And it was just this
and they're
really
still
intense.
alive.
Yeah. They're just whatever. It just felt depressing. It felt oppressive. I mean, the weather was nice. Everything was going well. But then you look around, there are certain people dealing with various mental illnesses, spiritual illnesses, things that are going on. When you start doing this stuff, there are some random, funny, but kind of disturbing interruptions that happen.
So many, whether it's a drunk person, or we've had people walk through a ministry site, pull down their pants and just start urinating.
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
And now all of these 15-year-olds are like, I just saw, and we go, right. And people struggle.
Yeah.
And them being like, well, I grew up in Broken Arrow.
Right. Yeah.
And they're like, that doesn't happen at Nine House Park.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't. It shouldn't. It doesn't.
It shouldn't and it doesn't.
It's a crash course. Yeah.
But the fact that they get to experience that, all of that adds to their, like, if they're like Batman, their utility belt. So as they go out throughout life, and they go to OU or they go to they go off to college, or they don't go to college. They start working.
Living life, yeah.
In their mind, they remember, I remember sitting
Yeah.
on dirt, watching my friend give their testimony.
Yeah.
And over to the side, I saw someone with no arms and no legs, but only a torso, and they were laying there on a blanket listening.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, we got to pray for this person.
Yeah.
That's a real story.
Right.
Anyways, I'm such a I would say sucker, but that's not even a respectful word. I'm such a believer
Sure.
in short-term missions, regardless what anyone says. You
Yeah.
know, like when people talk against it, I'm like, well, you're not going to convince me because I've been on it. I've seen what it's done.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds pretty logical that, like, by the time a person's 20 years old, is it better or worse for them to have been to 7 countries, spoken to people in several different languages, helped, you know, in Ecuador, we go to this middle of nowhere town, we're handing out food, we're talking to people. You're going to tell me that's worse for the student, that's bad for them to be in their mid-20s thinking about what job they want to get?
I think the argument is that it doesn't do much help for the people in the country.
That's fair. I do think it should be evaluated from that route, but it's like there's a school in Haiti that I helped build that is, for all I know, still standing today. And I don't really know what the argument is there besides, like, we showed up, we built it, we talked to the kids, we played with, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's a fence in Africa that keeps a farmer's animals safer in the middle of nowhere in Burkina Faso. You know,
Yeah.
and so it's like, you know, so I do think it's important what
And
sort
then,
of
and then
missions
it's
work
like,
you do.
so either you do that, or you go skiing with your family.
Yeah.
Or you don't go skiing. You go to Branson, or you just stay home during spring break.
Sure, that's an option. Yeah.
Like, all those options are not bad, but
Yeah.
I do believe
Yeah.
that it only adds to the person's life if they decide to go.
Yeah.
Anyways, I know we're preaching to the choir. I know
Sure.
if you guys are listening, watching, you're like, well, how can I find out more about it? You know, it doesn't matter where you go to church or where you live at. You can go on a Victory Missions trip. We
Yeah.
have summer trips coming up.
Yeah.
We had a kid who would grow up watching things on social media. Ricky Altizer's little brother.
Oh wow. Okay.
So there's a family group. Sorry, our friend Ricky.
Yeah.
His mom and dad are, I would say, missionaries. They are true missionaries, but they live in Hawaii, in the poorer parts of Hawaii, and that's where they minister.
Yeah.
They have a son who is within that young teenager age.
Yeah.
And their son was looking at things on social media and was like, Mom and Dad, I want to go on a Victory Missions trip. So they flew from Hawaii, and they were like, we live on the missions field.
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, but Hawaii's still America.
Yeah. He wanted to see the world.
And he
Yeah.
is now, and so he doesn't know any other kids, and he's currently on the mission trip.
That's cool.
He got prayed for on the
Very
weekend.
cool. Oh
Isn't
wow.
that cool?
That's amazing. Yeah.
I just think it's awesome.
that is amazing.
So,
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah.
but as far as behind the scenes of ministry, we're in that. We're also we started our first rehearsal for Easter.
Yeah.
Excited about that. Whenever you're listening to this, you know, one thing that, you know, we currently do is everyone at Victory does multiple responsibilities. You know, some of my responsibilities is, one thing that I do is I also help with the strength training of athletes at Victory School.
Yeah.
You know, and it sounds cool until you are with kids that don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, this is glorified babysitting.
Yeah.
And then there's some kids that there's some guys and girls that really, really buy into
they're
it, and it's
about
very
it.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, in the winter, there's this thing called powerlifting. And powerlifting is you bench, squat, and deadlift. And if you don't know what those are, Google. And basically, you go up to these meets, and they're all-day meets, and it's during school. And all these schools come together, and there's 13 different weight classes. And so a kid will go into their weight class, let's say 123 or 181 or heavyweight or 275. You compete against other kids, against other schools, and you all get to compete. You do squat, and then everyone else does squat, and there's all these rules about, like, you got to go on command, you got to, you know, wrap your knees with knee wraps and all these types of things, and then everyone does bench, and then everyone at the end of the day does deadlift, and they take your best lift, and you get 3 tries.
Nice.
Well, we have this kid. Sorry, all right. We have this kid here who was in the 242 weight class, and His name is Kanan Miller.
Yeah.
And the state record for his class on deadlift was 635 pounds, which is insane for a high school kid
so
to
heavy,
deadlift.
dude. Yeah.
So anyways,
Oh my God.
but this kid was close to doing it last year as a
Yeah.
junior. He is now a senior.
Yeah.
And anyways, to go to, so regionals was last week, state is this week, and in order to go to state, you have to, and if you scratch, which means if you don't get the lift, or maybe you take the bar off, and they say on bench, they go press, and then they say rack, and then you rack the bar. If you take the bar off, even if it's 1,000,000 pounds, and you press it, and you break every world record, but if you press it before he says it, it's a scratch.
Amazing. Yeah.
And so, anyways, but you get 3 tries. Well, this guy, his first bench, because the goal was, okay, let's get to state, and you're going to break the state record on the biggest platform.
Cool.
There's 500 lifters at state. At regionals, there's about like 260, close to 300.
Okay.
But at state, there's 4 regions, and so the top out of every region goes to state. So you're going against the best of the best.
Sure.
So our goal was, on bench, he scratches, and because he like didn't do the right commands or something silly.
Sure.
And I was like, okay, it's all right. He jumps weight on bench, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna go for this. And I go, okay, we need to change that because you didn't get the last one. He's like, well, I got it. I just didn't go on command. And so I was like, okay, you just get 2 more tries. Well, he doesn't get it.
Oh, yikes.
And he DQs, and then on his 3rd try, he doesn't get it again.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have any lift on bench. So he moves to deadlift, and a guy comes over from the record table, and he goes, hey, just so you know, he can't go to state. And he goes, even if he gets all of his deadlifts, you have to have at least 1 bench.
Whoa.
And he was like, and I go, well, I'm not going to tell him now.
Right.
And I was like, is there any way, can I talk? So anyways, I tell him, I go, hey, you need to go for the state record today.
Yeah.
And he was like, why? And I was like, I think you can do it. I just didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And his parents are there, and I go and I talk to his parents.
Yeah.
And they're like devastated, and they're like, is there anything we can do? Anyways, this guy deadlifts, so the state record is 635. He gets 650.
Oh my gosh.
And people go nuts, and people are like, oh my gosh.
650 pounds.
On his 2nd try.
Oh my gosh, dude.
And anyways, and everyone is going nuts and crazy.
Yeah.
And I go, I need to call the president of this organization.
Yeah,
so I call the president. I send him the videos. We're talking to him. Me and even other coaches are like, hey, this guy is good kid, And he's like, I'm sorry. It's the rule book. It's in the rule. He cannot go. And so for the last lift, I was like, oh man, he does not know that he can't do something. So before his last one, I go, hey, I think that you should go for 700 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
And he goes, okay, bet. And I was like, all right, this boy was 17 a few weeks ago, just turned 18.
Yeah.
And he's gonna go for 700 as an
pounds.
18-year-old. And so everyone in the gym, everyone gathers around him.
I bet, yeah.
And everyone is getting hype
I bet.
out of their minds.
Yeah.
Just, people from other schools. It was beautiful. And, the ref, he holds his hands up, and then you have to lock out. And this dude gets 700 pounds.
Oh my gosh. He lifts 700 pounds.
700 pounds.
Unbelievable, dude.
Unbelievable. He gets it. Everyone goes nuts. There's at the powerlifting meet, there's chalk for your hands to help with your grip. People are throwing up chalk like LeBron.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
It's like a parade.
It was awesome. Everyone was happy for him.
Oh.
And with only 2 lifts, just with squat and deadlift, he still placed 4th.
Incredible.
Everyone else got 3 lifts.
Yeah.
He still got a 4th place medal, which I'm like, if he would have hit his bench, he would have been first place.
Of
would have
course.
advanced. Anyways, so after he placed, I then had to pull him aside and I had to talk to him.
Oh man.
It was devastating. Everyone was so upset.
Yeah.
I was like,
Dang.
I just felt so bad.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I just was like, this is unfair. But then I was talking to him, and he just smiled, and he was like, John, he said, Coach, and he was like, I hit 700 pounds.
Yeah.
And I was like, you did.
Yeah.
And I said, and we're going to make a plaque, and we're going to do a banner for you at the school because you broke a record, an Oklahoma
State
record.
yeah.
It was absolutely so special.
Wow.
And I was like, I am so angry. And he was like, yeah, it really sucks, to be honest. And I said, it does. It truly does. And I am so sorry. And he goes, my life is not powerlifting.
Oh, wow.
An 18-year-old said that.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. It's a big deal.
And I was like,
yeah. Yeah.
It was such a big deal to me.
Sure.
And I wanted it for him.
Totally.
And it made me think about parents who really want things for their kids.
Yeah. Wow.
It made me think about, I really started thinking about it. And I was like, this kid is going to go professional in something, and it may not be something that he's insanely good at.
Sure. Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And, the few days after that, just talking through, and I was like, he got to experience something in life to where, because of rules.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I
mean?
Yeah. And I'm like, when did I experience that? When it was like something not fair. But at the end of the day, it's in the rule book.
Sure.
And it made me start thinking about bigger things in life to where I'm like, this was not fair. But what did it do for me
wow.
as a human? And what did it build in me? And what did it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, this person came to, there is like the story of the gardener of the year, one gardener of the year, Better Homes and Gardens.
Yeah.
And the interviewer person met with him, and it was, you have the most beautiful garden. This was like 2016, 2017. Most beautiful garden. It's huge. And I think the reason why he won is because it was immaculate, but it was an acre. So it wasn't just like a small, it was a big.
Yeah.
And he said, and the gardener, I can't remember if it was a he or a she.
Sure.
But the gardener was like, well, I don't force the plants to grow. I remove what stops them.
Beautiful. Whoa. Whoa, that's really good.
I'm going to say that again, just so y'all be taking notes. He said, I don't force the plants to grow. I remove what stops them. But it's a full-time job to remove what stops them.
That's interesting.
Mealworms, rocks, all those things.
Yeah.
And, I'm thinking about Canaan and all this stuff, and I'm like, the bitterness that set in within me in an instant.
Yeah, sure.
He was like,
right.
I can tell he's going to grow because he just will remove those things that could possibly stop him growing as a person.
Yeah.
And could make him a victim.
Yeah.
And could be like, well, I would have got this instead of this, but blah, blah, blah.
Sure,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, the Uncle Rico.
Uncle
effect.
Rico.
Yeah,
I used to throw, I could throw a bottle over them mountains about 5 miles away.
Yeah.
That whole shtick.
He won't be that guy. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so anyways, it really helped me start thinking about like where in life, like life is not meant to be fair, but what can God do and use from that?
Right, yeah. It reminds me of the idea that like, we talk about those three things: essence, process, outcome.
Yes.
And
can you recap that for anyone who did not hear that podcast?
It's only fair that I heard Erwin McManus say this.
Which we honor him, we love him, he's awesome.
Pastor in LA and many other things. Whatever. There's a triangle of essence, process, and outcome. Most people focus on outcome.
So their whole life is focused on the outcome.
The example here is I want to go to state and win and set the record on that stage.
Right.
That's the outcome I want. I want a state title, whatever. And so the way I've heard it explained is if you try to just copy people's outcomes, you also will inherit their essence, and you might have outcomes you like, which is the majority of the world. I won this. Oh, I published this. Oh, I did this. Or I made this. Or I have this much money. Or I drive this car. Or this is our lake house in the summer. Outcome is great, but the essence involved, the character involved, is like toxic or
garbage.
Gross. Or you're just like, wow, this person really, their entire identity is their outcome, and it makes their essence a toxic, backwash, gross thing. And so. What I really want for my life is to focus on essence, let that inform your process, and then trust God with the outcome.
So don't worry about the outcome. focus on who I want to be and how I want to do
Yeah.
this specific process.
Identity apart from outcome. Yeah, basically.
Identity apart from outcome.
Yeah, and then outcomes work. Like, it works out. And the difference is you don't take any credit for the outcome anymore. So when something goes really well and someone's like, wow, that's amazing, you go, I guess it is, yeah. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Let me ask you this. Do you feel like we do that with our productions, or do you feel like we don't?
Focus on essence? I mean, I would say in the several years I've been here, we have moved the fader closer toward essence, because now it's a lot more fun to make these things. And I wasn't here before I was here, so I can't know for sure. So that's honestly a question for you. Do you feel like making these things has gotten more enjoyable than just having made them?
Oh, yeah. I remember the last year, and I've shared this before on podcasts, but I was Jesus in productions.
Yeah.
And I remember the last year that I was Jesus. I was in such a terrible mood. I was losing hair. I was balding.
Oh, man.
And I still have like a thin hair on the top of my head. But it's not balding. I'll shoot you with my finger guns. But I think it was even worse.
Sure.
And I just felt always tired, rings under my eyes.
Yeah.
And I remember wanting it to be a certain thing, and it just was so much. And I remember I was trying to help produce it and also be Jesus in it.
That's so hard, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was multiple
That's
people.
like saying I was trying to give birth to a baby and I was the baby. It's like, what are you talking about?
Give birth to the baby.
And I was the baby.
Right. That is so true.
That's
No, that's why
impossible,
it felt like I was losing my mind.
Yeah, I bet. That's like, it's
And
impossible.
I remember like after the very first, they were putting blood on me after the first show.
Yeah.
The first show, I was getting ready for to walk with the cross.
Yeah.
And I'm there, and I did not realize I said it out loud. I go, I don't want to do this anymore. And this makeup girl goes, this is the first night.
We have like 8 of these. Yeah.
No, I had 7 more. That was when we did 8.
Yeah, Wednesday through. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was like, I just wanted to cry.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
You know,
No,
but
it's real.
you know, we got through it, and so to answer your question, I do think that I have gotten better, but there is times where I still can slip into the like, but this is what I want it to be. This is what I want it to be.
Sure.
You know, which isn't bad, but it is also like, as opposed to, who are we when we're creating it, and are we at peace? Are we in that groove of enjoying, and people, and more people are involved in the creative process as opposed to one person running the show.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so I feel like it's gotten better.
I agree. I love it. I really enjoy making them, and so it doesn't feel like, oh, I just need to get this done. And I don't feel like it's very human and fair that when you first get a shot at making something that people are going to see, that legitimately thousands of people are going to see, to think about, well, how can I make them feel hyped about me as a person with what I'm making? How can I make them be like, wow, Victory's awesome, Arvin's awesome, these people are amazing, they're doing such cool stuff. And it's normal for like an insecure kid to grow up and want to make something like that. But then even if, like, the funniest thing that can happen is if God lets you do that, because you do it a couple times, and then you start to resent them.
You start to resent the people.
Yeah, like my childhood was me figuring out what sort of godliness do I need to exhibit to make the Christian people around me cheer for me. And when I got them to cheer for me,
after a few years,
my junior year of high school, I was like suicidal, and no one had a clue. And it was like, I'm preaching in churches. Churches are inviting me to come talk.
As a 17-year-old.
Yeah, I'm milking my parents' story of escaping from prison in Iran. I'm turning it into this narrative of like, and that's what God did for us, and so this is how you can, you know, I got a full ride to college because of this story. Like, here's the massive narrative God's doing in my life, et cetera, et cetera. And the fact that people, and I'm not blaming any of them, it's more so I was bummed out that it was so easy to fool people into like hey, I'm impressive. And they go, yeah, you're impressive.
And then you're like, okay, I thought it was going to feel different.
Yeah, exactly. So the funny thing is when God gives you a modicum of success at the thing you're trying to do, and you're like, oh, that feels disgusting. And then thankfully in college, the mercy of God in my life looked like eating gravel for like 7 years. Like 18 to 25 was just like, you're going to not succeed at anything, and it's going to save your life, and it's going to save your soul. And it was really helpful, you know?
Yes. Yeah, and it goes back to, yes. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that is a smart thing that, like, I don't want to sum it up in a simple scripture of God turns all things.
No, sure.
For those who love Him to good. But I'm thinking about how you said, I ate gravel for 7 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's going to save your life.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to that young man who hit that record.
Yeah.
But still not getting.
Sure.
I know somehow, some way.
Yeah.
God's going to use.
Yeah. His
that.
essence seems very healthy.
Yes.
So he probably has a much more successful future ahead of him than if he had just been focused only on the outcome.
Right.
That'll be a good, guy. I'm curious where his, college career. I know guys that are similar to him. They're almost at the tail end of college, and I'm like, oh, I'm so excited to see this kid's 20s.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what he's like in his late 20s. You know what I mean? Because they have these, they're giving you see the flags that they're not even intentionally trying to wave. You can just kind of see them like, oh, this person has character. He's going to work hard. He's not interested in being seen and fame and whatever.
Yeah.
And that's sort of a accidental, like when you said that gardener saying, I just remove the things that keep it from growing. There are a lot of people culturally, it's like kind of popular to do the thing that makes a person. Do you want to pause and answer that real quick so we can?
No, it's all right.
Okay. But are we there? Okay. Anyways,
but
I'll wrap it up. Yeah, just most of the people, the takeaway from today's podcast is what's keeping me from growing? Like, what are the areas in my life that what am I?
And what you said, I don't think that you truly know what's keeping you from growing until you experience something of, that was unfair.
Yeah, you have to be disappointed.
You have to be. Disappointment
Yeah.
is some of the greatest things that can happen to you if you can steward it well.
Agreed.
So anyways, but we just wanted to say thank you so much for listening and
Thanks,
watching.
guys.
And we look forward to seeing you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.